Welcome, everyone. I am CCP Swift, and I'm joined today by two amazing guests, CCP Masterplan and CCP Kestrel, to talk about some of the new changes that are coming regarding Awoxing and standings in the faction warfare ecosystem. Hey, guys, how's it going?
Pretty good, thanks. Yeah.
It's going well.
Nice. So we released a dev blog pretty earlier this week talking about the changes that are upcoming, some of the problems that people are experiencing in faction warfare, and some of the changes that we're looking at implementing between now and the expansion, and also look back a little bit about some of the changes that we made to standings in previous updates just this year. So let's get into it directly. I'm going to assume that a lot of everyone that's watching has read at least a little bit about the blog. They know what the topics are, standings, faction warfare. So why do standings matter so much in the faction warfare space, CCP Kestrel?
So for factional warfare, one of the reasons that standings matter is that if they go too low, then you will get kicked out if you're directly enlisted, or if you're in a corporation, if your average corporation standings go too low, your corporation gets kicked out. And the same is true for alliances as well.
Right, and yeah, and the kind of the standing system, at least conceptually, thematically, is meant to reward you for doing good stuff and punish you for doing bad stuff. And if you've done enough bad stuff, you tend to just get the mechanisms in place so you get kicked out.
Yeah. It's the in-game equivalent of the social repercussions that you'd get from a player-run group, right?
Yeah. Right on. Okay, so that's great in theory, but how's it working in practice? I guess where is it going wrong in practice right now where we wanted to kind of step in and look at some changes? I'll throw it to you, CCP Kestrel, because I know you roam around in this area of space. You know what goes on.
Sure. So like as we mentioned in the blog, one of the problems, at least when it comes to corporation and alliance enlistment, is that because it uses an average, it means that if you have enough good people in your corporation, you can support one really bad person in your corporation. And some people are abusing that to be able to just kill people with friendly fire indefinitely. We call it, well, the players call it Awoxing. So like you're in Galanti and you're -10 to Galanti, but you'll never get kicked because you just happen to have like 3 or 4 other characters in Galanti that have like 4.0 standings, and then you can just kill all the new players you want.
Yeah, and it's not only new players. It might be someone, like when we talk about new players, sometimes it's an older player that's trying the space for the first time or something. And I know we've talked about this CCP Masterplan before, where like you just joined FW, you run into a complex, you see all purple militia people in local, you take the gate, and suddenly you're explodified, and you're like, well, shit. I know Losec is dangerous. I know it's not the safe spot, but I thought these guys would be my friends. And then you kind of like piece out of the content. It's not like you're going to rage quit the game or anything, but
yeah, and it's a sucky experience if you're not aware that that people are going to do this to you, right? Because it's breaking that implied trust of we're all on the same side. Why are you killing me and trying to take what should be kind of shared between the group?
Yeah, and CCP Kestrel, you mentioned this is players refer to this as Awoxing. I know that this is one of my favorite bits of just like player lore that they've come up with names for different things, but it's actually named after a player called Awox, who was like somehow one of the first players to do this, where he would just like get an alt in a corp and then just like hunt someone, tackle them, and then bring in his main to start killing them. I know people are like, oh, is it an acronym for something? What they're trying to make backrooms for it? No, it's just named after a guy.
And because I think the name was uppercase, right? So people assume it's an acronym.
Yeah. Awox, leaving a large legacy on Eve. And so also, CCP Kestrel, in the blog you were chatting about some of the loopholes that we're looking at closing as well, where people can recycle corporations. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So the average corp standings right now, I believe that they only calculate every so often. And so what you can do, even if you're -10, you can just create a brand new corp and then put that corp straight into factional warfare. And then you can kill people for 6 days until your corp standings catch up with your actual real character standings and you get kicked. And so, yeah, you can basically just circumvent the rules that would stop you from like directly enlisting, but you can use the corp as an exploit like that.
Eve players and circumventing rules. A more iconic duo cannot be named.
Yep.
CCP Masterplan, you've been like doing a lot of changes through the years. How do you, when you go about like designing a system, how do you like try to plan for players potentially breaking it?
Well, I mean, yeah, the experience suggests that like we can set up these rules. Players will always find the very edge of those rules, the intersections and the loopholes. They're going to game this, right? It's not like a board game night amongst friends where you can all agree, oh, this rule is a bit broken, let's not use it. Players are not going to do that. Any little advantage, they're going to take advantage of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why Awoxing is an issue right now, right? Because they, like people that are doing this, they don't want to share the reward with someone else. So it's easier to just kill you, even if you're a friend or foe. So I can get that sweet, sweet loyalty points to turn into faction ship blueprints or whatever I want. So when chatting about this, players obviously are concerned about Awoxing, not even if they don't necessarily experience it for themselves. A lot of the more established groups have figured out who these bad actors are, and they'll just manually set them to red, or they'll have like groups that go out and actually hunt the Awoxers. But for those that don't have that benefit or haven't yet found their forever home, these are the people that kind of get punished the most. And even if it's like not large in number, it is like a really bad experience enough to the point where you just don't want to do it anymore. So that kind of goes on to some of the other changes that you guys were looking at doing, which is I think is one of the coolest things is the modulated standings. CCP Masterplan, can you talk? Is it fair to call it modulated standings? Is that the best descriptor for it?
That's what I've been calling it in the team, yeah. So the idea is that normally the standings penalty you take is kind of static. It doesn't vary based on where you are. So by modulating it, what we're saying is we're going to give some context to the kind of situation. In some places, we're going to give you a bigger penalty. Some places, we're going to give you a lower penalty. And so what we're looking at doing is if you are attacking blues inside an FW complex, which is where in theory you should all be working together, we're going to increase the penalty that you get. Whereas if you are doing the same thing, say in a structure bash that's not really directly in the FW context, then we're going to lower the penalties compared to what it would be now. So right now, it's the same penalty no matter where you are. What we're looking at doing is halving it outside of an FW situation and then doubling it inside of an FW situation as a kind of a first pass to kind of see where the numbers land, right?
Yeah, and we can always tweak the numbers pretty easily. Ideally, if it isn't getting abused outside of FW plexes, we can start lowering that number. So then we get to a point where you can fight on Metanoxes and there's like enemy or friendly militia guys there, and it isn't really a big deal to shoot them if you have to. But then also, if we see like a big increase in Awoxing, we can increase it back to the 1.0 number. And the same is true for the FW Plex number 2. We can increase it if there's a lot of Awoxing happening in Plexes. But we can also decrease it as well if we really need to.
Right on. Yeah, so it's just like a new lever that we are able to do. And I think this is one of the cooler systems. I'm very Eve coded where I just think of like how Eve has always been. And it never occurred to me that we could just have standings be like the standings hit that you get be less somewhere else, like where you are in space. So like that is a really neat concept.
Yeah. I mean, we do a similar thing with security status standings, right? The penalties you get for doing a crime are bigger in a 1.0 versus a 0.5. So you're going to have a bigger standings drop if you're doing something in GIDA versus kind of somewhere that's a bit closer to low sec.
Yeah. And why I kind of like bring this up and why we're chatting about this now is because this is something that players get concerned about when we talk about punishing people for having negative standings. There are lots of incidental ways where you could accidentally get negative standings. As CCP Kestrel was saying, if you're fighting on like a Metanox or an Upwell structure or something like that, you're firewalling and you accidentally hit all of your fleet mates. Suddenly, oh no, I can no longer participate in faction warfare. I'm not a bad actor. I've just been trying to get rid of drones or missiles or something like this. And I just accidentally hit my own fleet. I do this to pad my kill board, but like other people have more noble intentions to do it. And so this is where the modulated standings come in. So if you are doing that, it's not going to be like you're out straight to jail.
Yep.
And CCP Kestrel, can you tell us some other ways that we've removed some ways where players might incidentally get some negative standings?
Yeah, so to other factions anyway, we've removed all forms of derived standings from factional warfare. So when you get promoted in factional warfare, you'll only get standings to the militia you were promoted for. So if you get promoted for Mimitar now, you only get Mimitar standings. instead of before when you would get some Galanti standings because they're allied to Minmatar and then lose Kodari and Amar standings. And that kind of sucked if you were like, you're a Mar mission runner, but you also play with your Corp who's in Minmatar or something like that. So now you just don't have to worry about it. And we're doing a similar thing to the faction warfare missions as well. We've already done level 1 and level 4s. We're going to do level 2s and level 3s on the lead up to the expansion. We've taken away all of the standing hits from the NPCs in there. So if you run a mission for Minmatar Militia and you shoot Amar NPCs in those missions, they will no longer give you standing penalties. Which also means that because the missions give you a lot of corp standings, a really good way to get promoted. It also means that you can like chase promotions as well and like double dip.
All right. So it's like a really more reliable way to gain standings and not lose standings in the process.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, at least in the groups that I play with, when we're talking about FW missions, they generally try not to do them too much because they're afraid of any standings hits that they might get, or it's also kind of dangerous. But like danger it's part of the game, so that's still staying the same.
Yeah, it also makes things more consistent too because when we did the original rework in 2012, which is way before my time, well, as a player then, we took away all of the standing hits from the NPCs that appear in the capture complexes deliberately. So, like, if you're doing kind of like the PvP capture side of faction warfare, you wouldn't lose standings to NPCs. And then in the Uprising expansion, all of the new content we added with the advantage objectives and the sites like battlefields, all of the NPCs in there, they don't have standing hits. But we only had standing hits on the missions. That could also be confusing for like newer people into FW2. And there was also like a lot of people saying stuff on Reddit like, don't join faction warfare, you're going to lose like tons of standings, and other people arguing with them like, no, I just do PvP. I've never lost any standings doing faction warfare. But now it's like a lot more consistent.
Yeah, it wasn't very intuitive at all, was it really?
Yeah, that is a really neat thing to look at. And I know this is, I guess, more tangentially related, not directly related, but earlier this year, you guys fixed a bug that was super annoying to players in Corruption 5 systems when they would have a bubble, like an interdiction bubble, and someone would try to warp in there. They would occasionally somehow get a standings penalty for doing it. So if an entire fleet tried to initiate a fleet warp in a bubble, that guy's standings were just gone forever. But you guys removed that.
Yes, yeah, and that was a weird interaction between kind of high-sec systems and bubbles, which normally would never meet because of the rules we have. But with the corruption, that could kind of temporarily kind of cross those two areas. So yeah, it was once we kind of figured out what was going on, it was kind of made sense just to not penalise those and follow the same rules for bubbles elsewhere.
Right on. So I just see like a trend going on here where you guys are removing some of the ways that players might legitimately or were legitimately having their standings decreased.
Yep.
And we're trying to leave it so it's only the bad stuff, like shooting another player or trying to get them out of your FW complex, like specifically in your own militia. One of the other, like as we were chatting with the community about this, they came back with a couple of like really valid concerns, and it was really well formulated. They got a whole bunch of people together to say, hey, here's why we think that this is a cool idea, but we're worried about these issues here. And one of the issues that they brought up is like, this is great that you're removing the standings penalties or like the negative standings that I might get in the future, but I've been playing EVE in faction warfare for some time now. My standings, I've like accrued them negatively for a long, long time. How do I get out of this? And one of the things that I guess players don't really have too much information on, you guys chatted about in the dev blog a bit, is upcoming military campaigns. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that might help people repair standings?
Sure.
Yeah.
So there are going to be. I can't really go in too much depth about the specific objectives or military campaigns.
I didn't want this to turn into a whole like chat about military campaigns and like leaking all the cool things that we're going to share at FanFest. But I guess just in general, how players are going to be able to raise standings.
So in general, there'll be like objectives that you can do as part of military campaigns, and one of the rewards of those objectives will be standings to the faction that you're completing them for.
Okay. And will that be limited to people that are only in faction warfare?
No, you don't have to be enlisted, although some of the objectives will require enlistment.
Okay, cool. So I guess that's a bit of a missing piece because right now, how do you gain standings besides promotions and like running the sites and running FW missions, I guess how do players generally try to repair their standings or grind their standings?
I mean, it is very tough. Probably one of the best ways to do it is you can also buy standings from other players, although they're pretty expensive, because you can share the Epic Arc rewards. So you can get someone to run like the Minotaur Epic Arc for you, and then you like buy their standings from them.
That's actually a
Uh,
really cool system where a very inventive
Outsourcing,
system,
yeah.
yeah, that we probably didn't think about. One of those things way back in the day when it was designed that we didn't think about too much of how players would probably use this, which
Mhm.
makes designing systems in Eve very exciting because they're going to use it in weird ways.
Mhm.
But yeah, Kestrel, to your point, like if I've got negative standings, I pay someone that runs the Scissor of Eve Epic Arc. I sit and fleet with them. They click the buttons, they go all the way through. They get the standings. I share it. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not. It's not the best way to go about
No,
it.
and
Yeah.
it's not a mechanic that's advertised anywhere, right? It's not something that you're going to find in just by playing the game and discover this yourself. It's someone's got to tell you really about this before you can learn that that's a possibility. So yeah, with the campaigns and objectives that are coming up, one of the primary rewards that's been designed around is standings with the factions.
All right. So I guess I'm kind of following a trend here that you guys are doing, which is, I know we're already talking about removing the negative standings, but also adding new ways to get positive standings through, like through gameplay that's not meant to like punish other players or AWOX or like team kill or anything like that. So I guess if a player gets concerned about repairing their standings, there is some hope on the horizon of
Mhm.
like, oh, there's going to be new ways where I can repair it, not just like running the Epic Arc or doing the data centers or
Yeah.
anything like that.
And we're going to be, so the changes around the kind of the limits of we're going to kick you out if your standings are too low. We're not going to be bringing those in until we've also brought in a lot of these new ways to gain your standings.
Okay,
So-
so that's a really important point that
Yeah.
I think, like when players just see that thing and they're like, oh shit, I might be -10. I'm out next week or something. But
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
that's not the case.
No, and we have a lot of dials we can tune. I think at the moment we said the cutoff was going to be -5. We can maybe do something similar to what we did when we introduced the pirate factions, is kind of set the join threshold to be a lot lower at kind of -9, say, and then over time bring it back up so that people have got time to get themselves using the new ways to bring their standings back up.
Okay, and that seems like a really fair way to do it too, because like a lot of the concerns that we're like that players are bringing us is like, shit, like how am I supposed to repair my standings?
Mhm.
I don't have all day to just. I don't want to just play Eve to repair my standings. I want to play Eve to play with my corp, play with my friends, do normal stuff.
Yep.
Okay, cool. That's great to know. One other element that players brought up is like, okay, this might solve Awoxing in complexes, but the counterpoint to that is like, what happens when if seagulling takes off? CCP Kestrel, can you explain like what seagulling is and kind of how it works?
Sure. So seagulling is when you leech from some player's reward. So, for example, we're seeing this mostly in the new sites. So, we introduced in Uprising, the Battlefield site, which pays up to 30 people, and then the Ice Heist in Insurgencies from the Havoc expansion, because those sites are very rewarding and they pay up to 30 people. What some people are doing is they just put a character into that site and they don't really do anything. They just kind of fly around in a frigate and they don't actually contribute to like completing the site, but then they still get paid.
Yeah, and that's really annoying, right? And that's I think people are theory crafting like, well, if I can't AWOX anymore, then those guys get that much stronger because one of the ways you can deal with them is just like killing them in your site. But suddenly now you accrue more standings hits if you do that. So I guess when we think about like how players are going to adapt to a change and look at just the entire ecosystem, is this CCP Masterplan? You were talking about this a little bit. Like, do we have any, or rather, I should say, what are we looking out for when players are going to do stuff like seagulling? Like, what are we looking for from the player behavior side of things, and kind of what can we do to combat that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we've done, in some particular sites, we've done some things before by kind of tracking who's been in the site the longest and kind of paying the rewards out there. So we do have mechanics that we can kind of bring in. We might not necessarily use exactly the same mechanics as we've used elsewhere, but the idea of I've ticked this side up to 9 minutes out of 10, and then someone else comes in and kills me and takes the last minute, maybe you should still get the 90%, right? So there's things like that we can start to bring in if this continues to be sort of the problem that it still is. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so this, to reiterate, this isn't like just us thinking that we've solved the problem. We know it's going to be a moving target,
Yep.
and players are going to do some wacky stuff. They always do some wacky stuff when they're trying to min-max things and get an advantage over other players and just earn a living in the ecosystem. But in general, our goal is to, if it's safe for me to say, like, reward the people doing it positively and try and punish people who are doing it negatively, and either whether it's Awoxing or seagulling or whatever the next one is.
Mhm.
If you've got a great name and you have like great griefing mechanic that you have up for it, make sure to market yourself really well. So in like a year from now, when we're talking about the next big thing, it could be like, I don't know.
It's all about that branding.
Yeah,
right?
it's all about the brand. We can talk about fixing like Bear That Caresing, or if that turns out to be the new thing. All right, so got something that we're kind of looking forward, or looking not forward to necessarily, but looking ahead to is like trying to see how players are going to react to the next system and different ways that we can kind of circumvent that or make it less profitable, or really just promote people doing it the right way.
Yeah, and we don't see what we've kind of announced so far as the final kind of, this is going to solve all of the problems. We're very much aware this is an incremental thing, so we're going to put these out, see what what happens, what changes it produces, and then we can either tune things up or down, or just start introducing further new mechanics as well later on.
Right on. And then the last bit that I want to touch on just a bit is the number of players are going to be affected by this, and just like I think when you're looking at players who have accrued a lot of standings over the years, I think it's pretty easy to assume like, oh, so many people are going to be unable to join faction warfare because they've gotten a lot of standings, or like, oh, there's so many people in my corp who might be affected. Bear That Cares, I'll bring up the name again just because it's stuck in my head, did a post where he was looking at Eve Pandora, who have like this AWOX tracking system where they can like use Z-kill data and guess how many people are like AWOXing other people. And he estimated it's about like 1.5% or so. When you were looking at the data CCP Masterplan, about how many players, if we were to institute this today, how many players do you think would be kind of affected by this change?
Yeah, I mean,
or rather, I guess the ratio of players.
And also the thing to remember is there's 3 ways, right? You can be signed up in FW. There's I can directly enlist as an individual character.
Yeah.
I can join the NPC militia corps, or my corp or alliance can join. This standings restriction we're bringing in is only going to affect the people who are in FW because their corp or alliance has joined. So if you are in the militia corps, you already get kicked out if you go below 0.
Yeah.
Same as if you directly enlist, you're going to get kicked out if you go below 0. So all of those people, it's not going to affect those. Of the people who are then in your corps, who are then signed up, the numbers we're looking at the moment, if we were to turn this on TQ today, would be less than 1% of people right now would be affected.
Okay, so it's like a small number, and yeah, despite it being a small number, some of them might disproportionately affect a whole bunch of other people from wanting to join. And some of those people might have they might be the firewallers in their group. So they might be the ones that are just like constantly sit at -10 because it's easier to manage that way. You can't go lower than -10. There's no -11. We should make a dial that goes to -11.
Doesn't go to -11.
Yeah.
No.
Right on. Okay, well, that's good to know that like the number of people that are going to be affected is quite small. That said, we're still very much interested in hearing how players think about this, how they're concerned about it, how it's going to affect their gameplay. But it is, I guess, reassuring to hear that kind of like the idea of it as a concept. They're just worried about the implementation of it.
Yeah, and these are fair concerns, right? And obviously, they're worried about losing people who might then want to leave their area of the game. They're going to be losing fleet mates and court mates. So we do want to keep them in FW because it's a good part of the game, I think. So.
Yeah, it is an area of space that I quite like a lot. I before CCP Kestrel was CCP Kestrel, I would run around and see and like kind of stalk what fits he was flying in the FW space and just see like how he was getting fights and try to emulate him a little bit. Yeah, it's That was just my CCP Kestrel fanboy moment of the day. But right on, guys. Appreciate the chat. I think that covers just about everything. And yeah, as Masterplan was saying, we're very much hearing your feedback, listening to it, and it's a great resource for us because EVE players play the game in very weird ways that we might not expect. Like faction warfare isn't just running complexes; it's living your life in FW. It's living in low sec. It's fighting people that might be on your side, but like you're fighting over a larger objective sometime, or players doing some goofy stuff where they try to flag you to get you in negative standings to get kicked out. But this isn't aimed at you, and hopefully, if all things go well, we'll get it to a spot where it does reward the players doing the right stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. Well, appreciate you guys sitting down to chat with me today and chat with all of our EVE players listening in. Any final words before we say goodbye?
Well, thank you for having us. Enjoy the changes when they come out in the expansion.
Likewise. CJ Kestrel?
Yeah, looking forward to seeing people at FanFest as well.
Yes, FanFest is weirdly, scarily right around the corner. Scary for us because we're about to be invaded by thousands of nerds, but exciting at the same time because we're about to be invaded by thousands of nerds. It's dope. But really appreciate it. I am CCP Swift. We'll see you next time. Take care.